Never has this country ever witnessed such an event that occurred to that of the beginning of 2021. The general population expected 2021 to be the year everything returns to normal after a long and boring year of 2020, a year plagued by a worldwide pandemic of the coronavirus. The Capitol building on January 6th of 2021 was overtaken by Republican Party followers after some controversial events that occurred months prior. I will inform you about all the events that occurred that day in the capital of the United States of America. I will talk about how the riots were riled up by political events, lack of law enforcement, and what happened after the riot, the aftermath. I will want to talk about the recent U.S. history, or well, U.S. history when the first time the Capitol building was breached by British soldiers in 1814, over 200 years ago, and for this to happen, like not for nothing serious to happen between then and now is pretty important. But there are some notable events that happened, but not to the extent of what happened in January 6th. In 1954, four Puerto Rican nationalists entered the building with handguns armed, opened fire at five members of Congress, but luckily no one was killed. But that could not be said the same for the next event that occurred in 1998, when an armed assailant entered the building, killing one officer sadly. One of the reasons the riot occurred, or why the protest occurred, was caused by political events, and you would think that a protest in a political building was caused by some political events. The main one being Donald Trump being accused for inciting the events in Washington D.C., claiming illegitimate ballots, often pressuring some U.S. states to recount. And funnily enough, the recount came up with more Biden votes than Trump votes, which is pretty funny. Trump went to social media claiming that he will not step down as president even if Joe Biden is elected winner, claiming that the presidential election was fraudulent. And the other event that caused the protest to occur was the being Biden being held the winner of the 2020 presidential election. And you would think that one of the most important buildings in this country would be heavily protected, but it wasn't the case during this protest. The US government expected a protest to occur, but they did not expect such a huge amount of people to arrive, and 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 the protesters knew this and took advantage of the occasion, turning the peaceful protest into a full-blown riot. Since there was a lack of law enforcement, the protest became a riot, and what happened after the results of the riot was can be unfortunate. Unfortunate after many hours after the Capitol was breached. The riot resulted in the deaths of five people. Sadly, 140 people being injured. Luckily, none of them has passed away, from what I read. The congressmen and women were evacuated. Luckily, none of them were harmed during the process of being evacuated, because while they were being evacuated, it was still a protest and hasn't turned into a riot. And one of the and the building and the Capitol building was vandalized. Even though there was a lack of law enforcement, there were polices and some law enforcement there. So the followers had to take some measures to get in the building, breaking windows, breaking doors, and once they got inside, they vandalized the inside structure as well. And seeing the pictures of the aftermath is pretty sad to see. So I will repeat what the events that occurred to the riot. Political events: Trump inciting the events, Biden also, or the Biden winning the election also sparking the protest. The lack of law enforcement the lack of law enforcement, which resulted in the protest becoming a riot, and the result of the riot being the deaths of five people, 140 people being injured, the congressmen and women being evacuated safely, and the Capitol building being vandalized. As I said, the United States of America did not expect such an event to occur in a year that we expected normalcy to return, and especially in one of the most important buildings. With how the president incited the events, how the lack of law enforcement caused the protest to turn into a riot, and what resulted in the afterwards will now be in future history books. The whole event may have shocked the whole country, but knowing that we can overcome such an event may give us comfort that we can overcome whatever comes our way again. We must be better prepared, but hopefully, no event such as this happens again. Only if it's for the right reason. Thank you.